Now that I've completed the data ingestion process, the next stage now is to do data transformation. I'm in Azure portal resource page. Now, the first thing is to click Databricks, which I created earlier. I click Launch Workspace. This is the workspace I'm going to use to transform the data. Workspace is where we create our resources. Workflow is for data processing. Compute is where we create our cluster. We are going to use mostly workspace and the compute to do the transformation. The workflow, we have used the Azure Data Factory to do all that. What would have used the workflow to do? The first step now is to create the cluster, then followed by the notebook. I click compute. I click create compute. Rename this. I choose a single mode since I'm going to do a minimal operation. Database runtime, we leave it at default. Yeah, we have standard. I leave it at default. It's performance based. If you go for a higher one, you pay more. This is also performance based. The higher you go, the more money you pay. So I leave it at default. This is very important. Terminate after 120 minutes of inactivity. What that means is after 120 of inactivity, it will terminate it from running and it will save more money. I'm going to reduce it to 15 minutes. Under advanced, I will leave it as it is now. I click create compute. It's running. It's going to take some minutes to create. Let me create notebook. I go to workspace, click on it, click on share, right click on it, create notebook. This notebook will help us to mount the Azure Data Factory. As you can see, it's created. Here I can select the language I want. I leave it as it is. I choose Python. Let me rename this. I click on connect to connect it to the cluster I created. There are ways to have access to Azure Data Factory. You can use enable credential pass-through for user level data access. You can use token keys. I want to use credential pass-through for user level access. Go to advanced, click enable credentials. Under workspace, I've already created a notebook. Here is the notebook. I'm going to use the notebook to mount the storage account. So I go to Microsoft site where I can get the code to do the mounting of the storage account. Here you can see mount Azure Data Lake Storage to Databricks using credential pass-through. Since I'm using Python, I have to get the Python code. I pick the code and go back to my notebook to paste it. There are a few changes I need to make. This is the source. I'm going to rename container name with the source name of the storage account. If I go to my storage account, this is the source name, layer-1. I go over here and rename it layer-1. My storage account name is this. I copy it and come over here to paste it. I need to change the mount name to my storage account name. I have to run this to see whether the mount is successful. But before doing that, I have to check whether my cluster is running. The blue icon is showing that it's running. I now click to run it. The true here shows that it has been mounted. Now I'm going to use dbtools function to list the tables I mounted earlier on. It's dbtools.fs.ls/the mount point. I run it. As you can see here, it says this request is not authorized to perform this operation using this permission. I'm not permitted to perform this operation, so I have to go enable the permission to be able to carry out that operation. I go to my storage account, click on access control. I click role assignment. Under role assignment, I have to enable it. I go to roles. Under roles, I go to storage block contributor. Click on it. Done. I go back to run this. It's successful. To access all the files, it says healthy. I run it. As you can see, these are the tables I have in my sales healthy folder. Now that I can access all the tables I mounted earlier, let me go ahead to mount another container storage, which I will use to store the transformed data. That's my layer 2. I go back to my earlier script. copy it. I change this to layer 2, then mount it. It's successful. The next thing now is to know exactly what is needed to be transformed. Let me go to SQL Server. This is the table. It's cleaned, but I'm going to do just one cleanup, modify the date. After that transformation, I put it in the layer 2, which will be storing the transformed data. Under the date, I'm going to transform the dates from date time formats to date formats. It doesn't matter how many transformations are being carried out on the tables. But what is important is how you can use Databricks to do a transformation. If you check all the tables, they have the same date time formats. This is the address table. This is the customer table. They all have the same date time formats. I'm going to do the transformation across the 10 tables. These are the because I'm going to use to do the transformation in my CSLT tables. It has displayed all the names of the tables. I'm going to use this for each code to effect the changes on the sales tables. So what this will do is it will iterate the changes in all the tables. Here we have layer 1 in package format. Then we have the layer 2, which will contain the transformed tables having data format. Data format is the advanced version of package format and is developed by Databricks. I'm going to run the code. It's running. It has finished running. I've run the display code. It has transformed the date format from date time format to date format. I have two nodes here. I use this to mount the storage account. Then I use this to transform the tables. I'm going to create a pipeline and connect these nodes to my pipeline in the Azure Data Factory. What I have in it is the scripts I use to transform the data. First thing to do here is to establish a connection between the Azure Databricks and the Azure Data Factory. I'm going to create a link service. Go to Manage, click on Link Services, click the plus sign to create a new link service. Type Databricks, go to Compute, I click on it. I rename this, I leave the description. Since it's within the Azure ecosystem, I use Auto Resolve Integration Runtime. Azure Subscription, I select it. Azure Database Workspace, I click on it. I click Existing Cluster. Authentication, I have access token, manage service identity, user assigned manage identity. I click access token. I need to create a new token. I go to Databricks homepage. On the right side, I click this drop down, click user settings. I click developer. I click manage access token. I click generate new token. Lifetime days. Okay, I leave it as default. Generate. I click generate. I copy this key. Click done. Having copied the access token key, I come over to Azure Key Vault to store the token key. Under secrets, I click generate. Under name, I type Databricks access token. I paste the key here. I click create. It's created. Now that I've created the key, I select Azure Key Vault. I select Key Vault link service, which I earlier created. Under the secret name, I select the secret token I stored on the Key Vault. I leave this as the latest version. Choose from existing cluster. I choose this. Click test connection. Successful. I click create. So I've created that. Let me publish. I click publish. I go back to the pipeline. I have two pipelines. I'm going to create a pipeline that will be linked to the Azure Databricks. Type node. I have two notebooks here. I choose this for Synapse and this for Databricks. I pick the one of Databricks. So I change the name. I click Azure Databricks, select the link service I created earlier on. Then to settings. Under settings, I need to select the notebook parts. I browse, go to share. I select layer 1 to layer 2. Click OK. So I've completed the end-to-end data migration. This copy the data from the on-prem server to the storage where the data was transformed. Let me save the changes by clicking Publish All. I'm going to test the connection. I click on Add Trigger now, click OK. As you can see, it's running. Let me go to the Monitor tab to monitor the pipeline running. This is successful. This is successful. If I go to details here, I can as well monitor the pipeline running from here. As you can see, the connection is successful. If I go to Azure Data Storage, click Layer 2, which contains the refined data. I have two files here. Data formats will keep the updated file and the last file so that you can make reference with the previous file. That's one of the advantages data format has over others. Now you have an idea of how an end-to-end pipeline project can be executed. Now in the next video, I'm going to show you how this can be loaded into the Azure Synapse Analytics for reporting.